personally believe that you will become President of the Philippines, of the Republic of the Philippines. One of these days, it's not 2016, maybe immediately after. If my perception is similar to yours, what do you intend to do about it? About becoming President of the Philippines?
To achieve any success, I believe in any political career, one must always hold central to your work and to all the efforts that you are doing is that essentially you are in public service. And because you are in public service, the most important measure of your success and of your recognition as a successful and effective public servant is performance. If you have any desire to remain in the political life, in public life, then you must always go back. Of course, the partisan forces are there. Of course, there are individual elements that come into play. But I think at the heart of it, one must always say, at the end of the day, I will be judged by my constituency, by my performance, how well I did for them. It's easy to be distracted. It's easy to stray from that idea. But one must just keep reminding oneself that make sure you have done your best, your absolute best. And people will know that. And if you are to enjoy any success, it will flow from that, I believe.
Good afternoon, Senator Marcos. I'm Dr. Sharif Mandan III from the province of Pakinggan, and we work with Unity as well. Now, you mentioned, hypothetically of course, that there will be lasting peace in Mindanao, and thank you very much for that. But while all of us want peace, yearn for peace, some of us have focused on economic development. So more than a question really, it's an invitation for you to come to the province of Pakinggan, specifically to our plantations and see what's going on.
Thank you. That is exactly the same idea that I have, because as we are in the midst of these discussions on the Bangsamoro Basic Law, I will try to remind our policymakers that whatever we do with the Bangsamoro Basic Law, we must see it as only a part of the peace process. And I think that when we talk to our Muslim brothers and sisters, the complaint that they make that they are underrepresented and underdeveloped is quite valid. And we must address that. One essential part of addressing the problem is to bring development to the conflict areas. The theory is simple. If a person has a good job, makes a decent living, is able to feed his family, send his children to school, to clothe them, then there is no motivation for them to pick up a weapon and go to war. And I think that that is something that we should aspire to, in terms of not only giving a political autonomy and recognition of the differences in culture, in heritage, in history, in law, in religion, but also to provide the means by which this feeling of underrepresentation and underdevelopment is assuaged. That is something very important. It is something that can only be done over the long term, and it can only be done not through signing of agreements. That is part of it, but that is not the be-all and the end-all. You have to go back and actually be inclusive. Again, this question of being inclusive in whatever development, whatever progress you bring to the rest of the country. One of the most profound statements I heard during our hearings in the BBL was one of the leaders just simply said, "Stop treating me like a Muslim, treat me like a Filipino." And that is an extremely profound statement, and that's something that sometimes we lose sight of.
You mentioned something about the tax regime you impose on this. What industry will get the highest tax? What industry will have the lowest tax? And in this regard, I also ask you to elaborate on that Marshal plan you had, you did a study about, and how do you intend to have this implemented in your administration?
I mentioned the Marshal Plan because it's something that we examined and to see the effects. It was an intellectual exercise in my economics class. And the conclusions that we arrived at was that the trickle down, the Marshall Plan was based on the idea of trickle down. Just send a lot of money, invest in the big ticket items, and the benefits of that will trickle down to the lowest parts of the economy. And upon examination, 10, 20 years after the Marshall Plan, it turns out that trickle-down theory does not work. It is not the role of business. It is not the role of the private sector to try and help that the distribution of wealth. The job of the private sector is to add value to all that you are doing in services, in goods, and to follow a socially responsible profit motive. That is an important function in the progress of our society, of our economy. It is up to the government to change that situation. We must make active policy decisions. We must take active implementation of that policy, where the distribution of wealth is done at a much better pace. We must always look to the disenfranchised. We always must look to those who are vulnerable. And that is the job of government. And that is something that we have not been, I do not think that we have addressed properly. We hear often about the 7% growth rate, and yet we spend 65 billion on the CCTs. The poverty rate does not change. The unemployment rate does not change. The literacy rate does not change. The mortality rate in our hospitals does not change. So basically, the way we are doing it is not working. It is often cited, the examples of Brazil and India in the CCTs as a tool for the distribution of wealth. In Brazil and in India, the CCTs were funded by corporate taxes. Hence, you can see there really is a distribution of wealth element in that. In the Philippines, CCTs are funded by borrowings. So that immediately wipes out the entire one of the most important parts of the CCTs, which is a distribution of wealth. So we have to rethink some policies. Anyone who has made even a cursory examination of any economy and its reactions and its policies towards poverty will know that direct transfer payments, i.e. throwing money at the problem, simply doesn't work. Hence the very famous Chinese saying about fishes. Don't give me a fish, teach me how to fish. And this is what we must do. We must give people the opportunity to make it better for them. How do we do that? The very beginning of that entire process, improve our educational system. With a well-trained, well-experienced workforce, you can do anything. And that will provide opportunities for people. That, again, if there are more high school graduates, there are more college graduates, literacy rate is improved. And in this day and age, our command of the English language is important because, for better or for worse, that is the language of the internet, that is the language of commerce. All of those things we must provide as a service of government. And I have always believed in the principle that education is the most important service that government provides its people, and that is just the beginning point. Now, then you must, again, have faith in your own economy, and that you invest in it. You invest in your own economy. Because when you invest in roads, when you invest in transport systems, when you invest in power plants, you are not investing in an economy. You're investing in your people, because you are making an investment to provide your people with an opportunity, with a framework in which they can flourish. Look at Filipinos abroad. When given the opportunity, they work, and knowing what the rules that are stable. You work hard, you do well, and with a bit of luck, you'll make it. And look at them, they make it. Filipinos make it. And we are not only successful, we are actually sought out because of the good work that we do. That all else being equal, they will choose a Filipino over another nationality. With such an asset, I cannot understand why we are in the doldrums when it comes to job creation, when it comes to the quality of life issues that we are facing. And can you imagine the 8 million Filipinos, all their skill and industry and resourcefulness that we are all famous for? Can you imagine bringing them all back to the Philippines? Can you imagine the contribution that they will make to nation building, to our progress? That is something that we really have to do, is to understand that government is here to provide a framework for the private sector to flourish. And there are many ways to do that, some simple, some more complicated, but nevertheless, that should be the job as we see it in terms of the partnership that we are asking the private sector to join in with government.